everyone. Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good morning, Rush Nation. Welcome to another Good Morning Fantasy Football. We got a bit delayed with yesterday. A few things happened, so we're doubling up today and getting these dropped for you. And so we've got a really interesting show for you today. It's going to be quite short and sweet like the other one, but there are a couple of topics that we should absolutely talk about here. And the first one's really to focus on. Let's talk about the FFCC. It starts in 6 days' time. So I've done all the charity reviews. I'm going to do a show later in the week about FFCC scoring and strategy. But the big news that dropped this morning, to the contestants, all 324 of them, was the format. And so it is a completely wild format. You can't make a bracket out of 324. So round one is going to be top 256 advance to the main event. The bottom 68 fall out and go into the FFCC Squid Game, which will be effectively a series of random prompts every single week until we crown a winner. There might be a final, there might not be. It's going to be complete chaos, and it's going to be delicious, and I cannot wait. So it's a brand new. So the FFCC now becomes 3 different tournaments this year. Last year we introduced the Intercontinental Plate with my guy Brian Drake winning that. This year it's the Squid Game is level 3. So that is the bottom level. The first 68 people who fall at the first hurdle in week 1 fall into the Squid Game, and that'll be in its own little random form of chaos. And let me know what you think of the Squid Game, because if you really like the idea of this, I'm quite happy to do it as a listener league, because I imagine it will be chaos. There's no limit to the amount of people we would have. You could have as many as 100 people, 200 people, but it has to have a kind of minimum, otherwise it's kind of pointless. So we'll need to kind of work out if there was an appetite for it. We could look to doing a sort of Squid Game type league for Listener League. So hit me up on Twitter and on the comments here and let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, and then let's explore it and see what we can do. Okay. So that's the big drop. The first 68 who fall at round 1 go into the Squid Game. That leaves 256 left in round 2. Of the top 256 scorers, they will play a 1-week matchup in their bracket. The winning 128 teams advance to round 2 of the main event and will fight for the world title currently held by America's Earl English. The losing 128 will fall into the Intercontinental Plate, which is hosted by which is currently being held by my good friend Brian Drake. So. And they will compete out in a bracket style. So you have the main event fighting for the world title, the Intercontinental Plate, and then the Squid Game. The reason for this is a couple of different reasons. One, you can't split 324 easily, and I want to grow the competition and have more people in it. I hate saying no to people. So that was the first one. And the second one was really just the feedback I had going into last year was that it's a great tournament. People love the idea of it, and then they go home round 1. So in some cases, people draft longer than they're actually in the tournament, which I get. It can be a bit frustrating, right? So we've done it so that each the first 2 levels you're playing a minimum of 4 weeks. So that doesn't happen, but we have to start culling people at some point. So you play Fantasy Cares Eliminators and you go out in round 1. So I don't feel too bad, but I did feel like there's an opportunity there to extend it a little bit and have a second tournament. Losing in round 1, but then you can go and run the table like Brian Drake did last year. These are quite fun. And then the Squid Game, something I've wanted to do for a while, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity to do that. So we're going to do that. And Again, everyone could go home really early, or it could go on a while. We're going to see, and it's going to be a completely random prompt every week. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope people enjoy it. I hope people really like the format. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. It'll be really important. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. That would be particularly useful. We're seeing more and more views on this channel, which is great. This is geared more for YouTube, even though there is the podcast version of this. We'd love to get even more views. And please do subscribe. They do help us ever so much. With that, so let's talk about some fantasy news. The big news over the weekend was that Jordan Addison was arrested for a DUI or suspicion of a DUI. Now, there's some real color to this in the sense of it's not the first time a player has been done for DUI, and that's obviously not good. And we had a severe incident with Henry Ruggs where DUI led to the death of people. And again, I'm not. It's a really, really bad thing, and the league needs to start thinking of ways to really punish these incidences. But this is even worse because Jordan Addison did this a week after his college teammate, who is a rookie for the Minnesota Vikings, who's drafted, passed away in a car accident. So his rookie teammate died in a car accident. A week later, he's out drink driving. It's a really bad look for the NFL. I mean, it's a really, really, really bad look. So the NFL is going to need to crack down on this. They're going to need to make an example, and they've got to start really hammering the line. I felt with the Henry Ruggs thing, the Raiders did it very well. They cut him, took the decision out of the NFL's hands effectively. No team picked him up, and the NFL didn't really have to create a sanction in the Henry Ruggs case because there was nothing to sanction. He wasn't on a team. So, I mean, they can sanction him now, but he's going to prison. He's never going to play in the NFL again. But these incidents keep happening with DUIs, and something needs to be done about it. So what happens with Jordan Addison, I genuinely don't know. I think we're going to be in a situation where the league is going to need to take a stance and is going to need to think about giving him a suspension. I can see commissioner's exempt list, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I think if you hold Jordan Addison in a league, you're going to have to be prepared to think about getting some form of replacement in for a trade in the Dynasty League. In redraft, for me, he falls down ranks even more now because there is this uncertainty that goes there. So I think you're going to have to move him down the board about 3 rounds, maybe even more, because of that level of uncertainty that you're going to get over the course of the next few weeks and months. Unless something comes out that clears him and it was a false positive test or something like that, you're going to have to tread very cautiously with Jordan Addison over draft season. And there's a good chance that nothing happens this season. It could kick on into next season. So that is also on the table. So all outcomes are available here. But I would be treading very carefully when it comes to Jordan Addison. And that moves me on to Rashee Rice and the incidents involving him. So I think we're in a really interesting scenario here with Rashee Rice. And I kind of defer to my good friend Drew Davenport. And if you're not following him, make sure you go and follow Drew on Twitter because he has a lot of great insight as a lawyer in this realm. I think in terms of Rashee Rice, I would say it's probably 60-40 he gets the suspension this year, and I'd expect that suspension to be somewhere between 4 to 6 games. So I think you've got this scenario with Rashee Rice where he's going in drafts, he's probably okay to draft because even if you do miss 4 to 6 games at the start of the season, you're drafting him as a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. So you can live without him, and then he comes back for the bye weeks, and then what he did at the end of the season. So I think we're at the point with Rashee Rice where the suspension shouldn't really scare you at his current price in that sort of wide receiver 4 range. I think you should feel fine with that. You're drafting starters ahead of him, and then you've got someone who could potentially be a flex or better play. Maybe talking about the bottom end wide receiver 2 towards the end of the season. Kind of depends on what Xavier Worthy does, which is also impacting his price a little bit. So I think you're at a point with Rashee Rice where actually you're looking at him and thinking he is someone who could, I don't want to say a value because I don't think it's a nice way to talk about it, the situation, the legal situation he's in, but I would say he's probably someone that's a bit more of a gamble that you could have. on than, say, Jordan Addison right now. And I think the look of the Jordan Addison piece is just really particularly bad a week after his college teammate and a draftee of this year dies. The NFL has to send that message out on Addison. With Rice, they also need to send a message, but I think they're going to let, as we've seen with Alvin Kamara, as we've seen with these other cases, they're waiting for the legal process to really kick in and get sorted with that piece. So I think that's also really, really key to think about going for this year. So they're kind of the really big pieces here. I think if as we go on, I'm going to be doing more and more. I'm going to do more and more pieces as we go through the season, especially if we're gearing up to the season. We're going to start seeing preseason friendly start soon. Oh, preseason friendly, because I'm talking about the wrong sport, but we're going to see preseason kickoff soon. We're going to see some really, really good info that we're going to be getting over the next few weeks. We've only got 8 Sundays till we're back with the NFL now. So I'm going to be doing a little bit about players that we should keep an eye on, potentially some breakouts and some sleepers. I'm going to be doing lots of other pieces as well over the next few weeks on just getting your draft ready. We'll be doing some strategy pieces. We'll be doing some really fun bits as well. So lots of fun pieces going on over the next few weeks. With this, I'll be back for the rest of this week. The scheduled content will be looking at the rest of the charity drafts that will be happening and giving some insight into that. We do, of course, have quite a few still to go that haven't kicked off yet. So we've got the Fields of Fantasy best ball competition, which is yet to kick off. And there's a couple of other formats as well that they kick off. The Lionheart is going to kick off, and then also the IDB Plus for Autism Awareness Podders playoffs. There's a few of these that are still to come. So we'll be sprinkling these in over the next few weeks. Plus also some additional thoughts on the drafts that are currently going as well. But if there's also any topics that you'd love me to cover, if there's any topics or thoughts or questions or feelings that you'd like me to really dig into, I'm more than happy to go into those. So suggest some content items, some topics of discussion in the comments. If you want me to answer questions, put them in the comments. The first few episodes of these have been very much charity draft heavy, and that's because we're in that season. I wanted to give people some really actionable advice and thoughts and feelings and sample projections and give them some ideas as to what is possible. And some strategy ideas, and I think that's been relatively well received. But I want to now do some other stuff as well. So if you've got an idea of what you'd like me to cover, please do. I'll be back at some point this week with an FFCC update. We'll also do some more fantasy football news. But if there's strategy, if there's awareness, any other things you'd like me to cover off, then please send that across to me as well. And again, I'd love to use this forum in Good Morning Fantasy Football to answer 1 or 2 questions in the YouTube comments. And I will only answer questions in the YouTube comments as well. So this is a lot of fun doing. I really love doing it. Yesterday was just one of those days that I couldn't really get out of. It was just something that I'm not going to go into details as to what happened, but something happened and that was the way it was. It's also going to be in some parts of this some pre-recorded stuff. Most of these actually do come out as pre-records. I do them and then I put them out to live. But there'll be some that'll be completely pre-recorded, so you might not see questions on some of the episodes, either because we haven't got any or because there haven't been any, or because they're pre-recorded in advance. And just covering some thoughts and processes. So if there's some topics that are coming up in recent time, it's like something big's happened and I've not talked about it, chances are it's a pre-recorded episode, but there'll still be plenty of time to talk about it on other shows and the flagship shows and all of that. And don't miss this week's flagship show. We got an amazing guest in Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros. So he is coming on the show and I can't wait to have him my very good friend come on and talk some strategy and get us ready for the redraft season as it's kicking off. So that's going to cover it for Good Morning Fantasy Football. Bit different this time round. I hope those of you in the FFCC love it. If you want me to do a squid game for a listener league, I'm open to it. That's the other thing. And I'm glad I talked about listener leagues because I'd forgotten. I've put a link in this to our listener leagues. Our listener leagues are now open. If you've never played in a 5-yard rush listener league, where have you been? This is one of them. This is what you're playing for: a t-shirt, and then also a spot in the Champion of Champions. So we do our listener leagues, and there's the sign-up form attached below. It's a £6.50 donation to our charity page, which is Crohn's and Colitis UK. And for each league, our current champions are allowed to enter 2. Our Patreons are allowed to enter 2. Everybody else is only allowed to enter 1. So I ask for a first, second, and third preference. If we're struggling to fill spaces, I do open up opportunities for people to then enter a second league. Now, they're all different leagues this year. And again, if you push me hard enough, we might do the Squid Game one. So we have the auction draft that we're going to host live on our episode on the 8th of August. So you're going to have an opportunity to draft live and be on our podcast. We have the 1QB PPR, Superflex PPR, for those of you that love standard scoring, our Franchise Flex Frenzy League, our IDP Plus League, which is our own unique scoring, our Rules Mania League, our Tier PPR League, a Superflex Tight End Premium League, and a Guillotine League. If you don't know what the Rules Mania or the Franchise Flex Frenzy are, drop me a comment in the YouTube comments and I'll explain them. Drop me a DM. Happy to explain them at 5-Yard Rush as well. So again, they're really fun, interactive, engaging leagues with some amazing people. And we raise a lot of money for charity for Crohn's and Colitis UK. Just a note on that, we hit £6,000 in donations yesterday, which is absolutely phenomenal. I'm pushing to get to £7,000. That's the final stretch goal. We've hit 2 of our stretch goals, which was £5,000 total and £5,000 without gift aid. We've hit both of those milestones. The next one is to 7K. To help us get there, enter our listener leagues. And again, I'm only dropping these links sort of sporadically, so listeners of the show are getting first priority to this. So if you're subscribing to the YouTube space and subscribing to these Good Morning Fantasy Football shows, and incredible, you're going to get a leg up and get more than likely your first preference. So do get entering ASAP and do that. It's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening in. I really appreciate each and every one of you who have reached out, who are enjoying these shows, interacting with these shows. Do subscribe to YouTube. Please do leave us some comments. And until tomorrow, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.